Welcome back to Preparing for the Collapse Radio. We're here to help you get smarter, faster, and we go straight to the source material that defines what real long-term resilience looks like.
And today's discussion is absolutely crucial. We're going to be shifting the focus entirely.
Away from what?
So away from that introductory checklist, the food buckets, the water filters. We're here to challenge the very definition of preparedness.
So we're exploring what author Spiritwalker calls the difference between short-term survival
and true multi-generational continuity. It's a huge distinction.
That's our mission then,
Yes.
to elevate your whole preparedness strategy. We've been immersed in Spiritwalker's file. It's called Elevate Your Prepping, Beyond Food and Water. And the argument he lays out is, well, it's pretty provocative.
It is. It challenges us to look past that initial emergency, to prepare for the long, maybe steady decline, or even the absence of the infrastructure we take for granted.
The central idea in this document is that most people, they stop prepping right when the real necessary work should actually begin.
Right. If we're serious about building resilience, we have to move beyond just imagining a collapse. We need to start recognizing the instability that's, already woven into our global systems.
Okay, let's unpack this. Spirit's file, it starts with the basics, the fundamentals. He says you absolutely must have the baseline: food, water, medicine, heat, for those immediate disruptions.
That's non-negotiable.
Exactly, that foundation has to be there. But he observes that focusing only there is a real failure of imagination.
And this is where his argument really picks up steam. We're not talking about some sudden, movie-style grid-down event.
No?
We're talking about a slow rot. Spiritwalker highlights that our incredibly complex systems, they falter even when the lights are technically still on.
And it's not theoretical. We've all lived through these wobbles recently. You saw it during the pandemic. You see it with geopolitical instability.
And the paper points to some very specific, real-world examples.
Yeah, like what?
Well, think about the global supply chains. They're built entirely on this fragile, just-in-time inventory model. Right.
When one link breaks, a container ship gets stuck, a localized energy crisis hits, the effects just ripple out instantly.
And he also mentions healthcare systems straining to the breaking point.
He does. And also how government assistance programs showed some serious fragility. For instance, he cites how SNFE benefits, that's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, it nearly stopped distributing for weeks.
Just because of a minor political standoff?
A minor political standoff. That event, that's the real question. And it brings us right to a topic a lot of modern preppers rely on for that midterm plan.
Digital knowledge.
Exactly. Digital knowledge. Spirit acknowledges that, in the interim, storing huge amounts of digital information, offline files, PDFs, downloaded manuals, that's a smart move if power's intermittent.
Absolutely. If you have a decent solar rig and a protected laptop, a vast digital library is incredibly useful.
But, and this is where it gets really interesting, we have to address the critical realization in his analysis. Digital storage has profound limits, especially when we talk about true long-term sustainability.
We need to think about entropy. Digital preservation is completely dependent on energy, on hardware integrity, and software compatibility.
Author Spiritwalker, he details the specific threats, doesn't he?
He does. Simple hard drive failure, device obsolescence, and just the degradation of delicate electronics over time. It's not just an EMP you have to worry about.
It's the simple things.
It's heat, moisture, simple wear and tear, and the eventual decay of your solar systems and batteries.
It's this idea of digital debt. Every terabyte of data requires constant maintenance to stay accessible.
And power input and backups. If the grid goes dark for years, or if civilization just reverts to a more basic technological state,
all that knowledge becomes inaccessible, corrupted.
Right.
Or simply forgotten because the tools to read it are gone.
Digital knowledge is useful, I want to be clear on that, but it is fundamentally not permanent. And that leads us right to Spiritwalker's main thesis, the most powerful takeaway from this whole document.
Which is?
Knowledge itself is the most overlooked and undervalued prep.
Water and food keep you alive. That's obvious.
But knowledge is what keeps you rebuilding. It allows you to sustain that life, repair the infrastructure you actually have, and, eventually create something new.
Without that knowledge, you are just purely dependent on your dwindling stockpile.
And this is where Spirit asks those really vital what-if questions. What happens when the manufactured supplies run out? What happens when something crucial breaks? A well pump, a grain mill, and there's no parts supply and no expert to call.
That's the moment of ultimate dependence. If the skill needed has been forgotten by everyone in your community, you're just stuck.
Which is why this analysis frames physical books as the ultimate, most resilient technology.
Books as permanent infrastructure.
Exactly. They require zero power, no updates, no fragile support systems. A book printed today contains information that can still be accessed 100 years from now.
They're independent storage devices. They've proven they can carry human knowledge through, well, dark ages when complex systems failed completely.
But hold on, isn't it true that in the short to midterm, a small device with 10 terabytes of manuals is just vastly more practical to move than, say, 500 physical books?
It's a great question, and Spiritwalker addresses this. He defines the purpose of the physical library. The digital device is for immediate reference, when you have power.
The physical book is for permanence and for teaching.
Right. He argues the long-term library isn't about convenience, it's a commitment to continuity. It's a tool, not a travel manual.
So the function of a well-chosen library, it becomes a teacher when the human teachers are gone. It becomes a reliable reference when memory fades, or when a community needs to relearn a lost trade.
That is resilience in action.
Exactly. And that point ties directly back to his earlier observation about supply chain fragility. If you know how to forge a new tool from scrap, you're free of the supply chain.
But if you only know how to buy a new tool, you're completely dependent on it.
Which brings us to the next section. What should a smart prepper library actually contain?
Spirit really emphasizes functionality here. The library must answer real, grid-down questions. It's about prioritizing operational knowledge over just, passive reading.
The list provided in the source is highly practical. It focuses on the absolute fundamentals of rebuilding a community with limited resources.
So let's get into those specific knowledge domains. The first key area is food preservation.
And specifically, methods that don't rely on refrigeration or large amounts of refined materials.
So we're moving beyond simple home canning.
Way beyond. We're talking about techniques like deep salting, smoking, long-term fermentation. If you can preserve meat and vegetables without a reliable source of new lids or consistent refrigeration, you've extended your shelf life dramatically. It's a completely different skill set than following a modern recipe.
Okay, what's next? The second area is in-depth gardening and seed saving.
It's not enough to just buy seeds every year. Spiritwalker stresses that you must understand how to select and save seeds year after year to ensure continued production.
That means knowing the difference between hybrid seeds,
which often don't produce viable offspring,
and the open-pollinated heirloom varieties that will maintain their traits. That level of knowledge ensures your food source is self-regenerating.
Next is herbal medicine and comprehensive first aid.
Treating illness without relying on modern clinics or prepackaged drugs.
It's critical. Understanding local wild plant identification, safe preparation, basic wound management that prevents infection when antibiotics are just gone. This knowledge drastically reduces your dependency.
And then there's animal care, mechanical repair, and carpentry.
The ability to repair tools and structures is non-negotiable. If you can't fix a wagon wheel, or repair a broken axle, or even maintain a simple hand pump,
that item is permanently lost once it fails.
Right. So the library needs clear, detailed guides on older, simpler mechanics, pre-electronics repair, and carpentry to maintain durable shelter.
And finally, cooking from basic staples and a strong foundation in off-grid living, basic engineering, and problem solving.
These are the skills that really define continuity. How do you cook for 30 people with just wood heat and dried beans? How do you innovate when a part breaks and you have to improvise a replacement from materials on hand? That's the knowledge that allows us to survive across generations.
And if you're looking for specific insight into these practical skills, author Spiritwalker maintains the Forgotten Wisdom blog. It is a fantastic resource for homesteading, off-grid living, survival, all these kinds of topics.
Yeah, you can find articles that go into serious detail on things like using specific perennial foods for long-term security or techniques for preparing natural remedies. These are actionable, physical skills being documented for future use.
Which brings us to Spirit's own approach to compiling this knowledge. He notes that many of the essential books on his shelves are ones he and his partner, Cheyenne James, actually wrote and published themselves.
And this isn't just about, promoting his own work. It's really a statement on quality control.
He found a huge gap in the market.
A massive gap. Most modern prepper books, they assume a high level of background knowledge or a functional society. He needed books designed specifically to stand alone, to teach complex skills clearly, without the internet.
And written to be repeatable in a degraded environment.
That long-term focus on practical utility is why he created the Preparing for the Collapse series. These books are designed to be part of that working, permanent library. They're meant to serve as practical references when systems have failed.
Ultimately, Spirit defines long-term preparedness not as something motivated by fear.
But by responsibility and stewardship. It's the understanding that the systems we rely on may fail, but knowledge is what allows communities and, well, human culture to endure.
So what does this all really mean? We stock up on food and water, and they keep us alive today, but they get used up.
They do, but knowledge, when it's properly preserved in physical form, it compounds. It lasts indefinitely, and it passes forward.
Which makes it the single most valuable prep you can undertake for the long-term future.
When you prioritize information right alongside your calories and your water, you are ensuring that those who come after you have the tools they need to rebuild civilization, not just survive for a few months until the supplies run out.
That is a phenomenal goal. And if you are ready to elevate your preparedness strategy and dive into this world of physical self-sufficiency and knowledge preservation, we want to point you toward Nomadic Enterprises. That's the parent site for the Forgotten Wisdom blog.
They offer a really well-curated range of resources and products for off-grid living, survival, and prepping. Things like garden seeds and relevant gear to support this entire lifestyle.
And crucially, since we've been emphasizing the importance of physical knowledge, Spiritwalker has a special offer going on right now for the Preparing for the Collapse book series that he co-authored. If you want to start building that essential permanent infrastructure library today, check the description for this segment. We'll have a direct link for you to purchase the series. It really is the essential tool set for true long-term preparedness.
Before we close out, let me leave you with one final thought, building on this idea of long-term stewardship.
Okay.
Think about the crucial, unique skill that you currently possess. Maybe it's welding, maybe it's advanced knot tying, maybe it's a specific knowledge of local medicinal fungi.
A skill that's unique to you or your small group.
Exactly. Now ask yourself, if the grid vanished and you were gone, would that knowledge be permanently lost?
That raises a truly important question. Beyond your stockpile, how are you actively documenting and preserving that unique, valuable knowledge for future generations? That is your next level of prep.
And it might be the most important work you can do, something powerful to mull over as you assess your own readiness.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us for this look into resilience and knowledge preservation on Preparing for the Collapse Radio. We'll catch you next time.